on today's episode of the Cryptoverse. Now the EOS mainnet is live, it is time for us token holders to cast our votes for block producers so the mainnet can become active. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through the entire process step by step. Stay tuned for that. So the EOS mainnet is now live. However, the chain becomes active as soon as 150 million EOS tokens have cast their votes, which right now is about 15% of the total supply. Bear in mind though that Block 1, who are the software company developing the EOS software, they themselves own 100 million tokens on their own. And now, while those 100 million tokens are released over time, they're released over the course of 10 years, despite that, they are able to vote with all of their tokens from day one. The reason I mention that is because it means Block 1 themselves could make up the first 10 of that 15%. So just bear that in mind. Now, whether you are an EOS token holder or not, if you would like to see how many tokens have voted so far, and then monitor the progress of this whole active phase, then you can head over to eosauthority.com/voting. Now, EOS Authority, they're a block producer candidate. They're based in the UK, and I personally have no affiliation with them whatsoever. I'm just sharing this tool with you because it's incredibly useful, and they built it. So this is actually the kind of thing that block producers do to get their name out there, you know, beyond just flat out marketing. If they build things that are useful to the community and their name is associated with it, then all the better. So lots of people in the EOS community, they know about EOS Authority already because EOS Authority have already created several tools like this during the development of EOS. So that gives EOS Authority a much higher chance of being elected. I mean, they've made it into my video, for example, right? So this shows the total number of EOS tokens in existence, just over 1 billion. The red area shows the threshold for the chain becoming active. So it says minimum votes, 150,001,772. And so far, at time of recording, only about 6.8 million tokens have voted, which is less than 1%. So the chain is not active yet at time of recording. The reason I'm doing this video is to help bump that up towards 15%. Since I first looked at this tool, it has been creeping up every hour. So this is my contribution to getting the chain active. So that's EOS Authority/voting. So how do you actually vote for your favorite block producer though? That's the next thing we are going to look at. Now, as a responsible teacher, one thing I need to point out is that this process I'm going to outline requires you to input your EOS private key into a software application that's been developed by this fellow called Nathan James. And he's a member of the EOS community, and he has been a member of the EOS community for a while. So I know of him, beyond the launch of the network. Now, while this tool has also been recommended by various parties within the EOS community beyond myself, we are still trusting this software with our private key. So what I'm saying is proceed at your own risk. Your alternative is to wait until the EOS mainnet is supported by a hardware wallet, and then you'll be able to protect your private key, with a hardware wallet instead. But the reason I hesitated there was because the timescale for hardware wallet support for EOS mainnet is unknown. So I accept the risks that I'm about to take here, so let's continue with the process. So you get to vote for up to 30 block producers, and then the 21 block producers with the most votes will get elected. And that can change at any time, right? There's an election every few minutes. So you can swap and change your votes as often as you want, and I'm going to show you how to do that. And the more EOS tokens you have, the more weight that your votes will carry. Pretty simple. Having said that, you may as well vote for 30 block producers, since voting for less than that doesn't make your other votes any stronger, right? So you may as well just vote for the whole 30. So how to vote then? Before we can actually start casting our votes, we need to do a little bit of preparation so that our system is set up to communicate with the EOS network. We also need to make sure we set this up in a secure way so our EOS tokens and our private keys are protected. And my personal tool of choice for this is Scatter. This was the tool I mentioned just a second ago that's developed by Nathan James. It's scatter-eos.com. Now, I'll just correct something. I said something on a video. I showed this webpage on a previous video, and I said, this is Scatter by Nathan James. Or I said something like, this is Nathan James. And what I meant was, this tool is Nathan James. I didn't mean the person in this picture is Nathan James. This is just some random model that's on the Scatter website, right? So just correct, I don't think this is Nathan James. I don't believe that. I know it's not that because I've met Nathan James in person and I know who Nathan James is. So just to clarify, I'm under no illusions as to what Nathan James looks like, and it's not this guy on the website. Okay. So back to Scatter there. Scatter is a software plugin. It works with Google Chrome and it works with Firefox, and you can get it from scatter-eos.com. Now you can install this by visiting the official Scatter website and then clicking on the appropriate button, either Chrome or Firefox. Since I'm using Google Chrome, I would suggest you do the same so that you can follow along with this process exactly. So I've already got Scatter installed, and once you've got it installed, you'll need to select a password the very first time you set it up. And then the very next thing you need to do after installing Scatter in your web browser and in giving it a password which will lock the whole thing, we'll need to verify that we've installed the real version of Scatter and not a fake version, right? So that's the very first thing we're going to do here. So to do this, we go to another website, which is eosportal.io/help. So eosportal.io/help. And then scroll down to this section here. It has the heading Validating Your Scatter. So once you're in this section, it's a validating with Chrome. In the first bullet point, you want to highlight this address here, which is chrome://extensions. So I'm going to highlight that and copy it onto my Windows clipboard. Then I'm going to open up a brand new tab, and I'm going to paste it in the address bar of this brand new tab. And then I'm going to press enter on my keyboard to visit that address. Now make sure that your Google Chrome is in developer mode. So there's a switch in the top right hand corner that says developer mode, and you can flip it left or right just by clicking on it. So you want to make sure that this switch is flipped to the right. The little white ball needs to be on the right hand side of the switch. And you might notice the difference between developer mode being turned on and turned off, because as you flip it from one to another, you'll see the IDs for all your various Google Chrome plugins appear and disappear. So now I've got it in developer mode with the white ball on the right hand side. What I need to do is go back to the previous tab here where we got the Chrome address from, and now we need to select this other string of letters and numbers which is underlined. This is the Scatter ID. So I'm going to highlight this, I'm going to right click, and we're going to go copy. Then I'm going to go back to this tab where I turned on the developer mode for all of my extensions in Google Chrome. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down the control key on my keyboard and press the F key. So that's F for Freddy. And what that does in Google Chrome, it brings up this little search box, right? And what I'm going to do with this search box is I'm going to paste in the ID that I just got from the portal, right? So the EOS portal is telling us what the official ID is for the real Scatter plugin. So when I search for it, Google Chrome will search the current web page to see if that string of letters appears anywhere. And in fact it does. It appears right next to my little Scatter plugin here. And the fact that it matches what's on the EOS portal website means that I do have the real version of Scatter installed. If you do this search and then it doesn't result in a match, stop the process right now, because you might have installed a fake version of Scatter. So don't go any further. I would recommend you go and seek help in one of the Telegram chat groups before proceeding. So now we have verified that we have the real scatter. We need to give it our EOS key so it can then sign and broadcast transactions on our behalf. And the first transaction that we want to broadcast are our votes. So the next step is to go to scatter and insert a key pair. So we don't actually need this tab anymore that lists all of the extensions and so on. So I'm going to go ahead and close it. So now that scatter is installed, you'll see it's an icon in the top right hand corner of your Google Chrome browser. And if I click on it, and assuming you've got it unlocked, and just to unlock it, you just enter your password, you'll see we have a number of options here. What I'm going to do is click on key pairs. And as you can see right now, I have no key pairs. So click on new at the top. It's a little bit faded out, but you'll be able to see it. Then make sure in the first drop down, you've got the EOS network selected. Give this key a nickname. This is just for your own reference. I'm going to call mine ICO key because this is the key that I generated when I purchased my EOS tokens in the ICO. You can leave the public key field blank and then just paste in your private key. So just to be clear, this is the EOS private key that was created for you when you registered your EOS tokens during the ICO. If you didn't register your EOS tokens, then you can't continue with this process at this time. And when you paste in your private key into Scatter, it's able to work out your public key by itself. That's why you don't have to type it in or paste it in. This is just how asymmetric cryptography works, right? You can determine the public key by knowing the private key, but you can't do it the other way around, right? If you know someone's public key, you can't work out their private key. That's why they call it asymmetric. It's not symmetrical. You can go one way, but you can't go the other, right? If that doesn't make sense to you, don't worry about it. Forget I said it. So once you've got these fields populated, you can click Save. Let me just pause the video for a second while I go and paste my private key in privately so that I don't show it on screen. So after clicking Save, I now have a new key pair listed here in the list with the nickname that I just gave it, which is ICO key. Now you'll notice you can't edit this, meaning once you've input your private key into Scatter, you then can't get it out, right? It will not tell you what it is. That's a security feature. So make sure you've got your private key saved somewhere else for reference, which I imagine you have, because that's probably where you got it from when you pasted it into Scatter. So the next step is to add the EOS network to our Scatter as well. Now bear in mind that the setup steps that we're going through here, this is not just to cast our votes. Once we've gone through this setup process once, it allows us to interact with a whole bunch of other apps on EOS without having to do all this again. So to add the EOS network to your Scatter, just go back to the homepage of eosportal.io, which I can do just by clicking in the address bar and deleting everything up until eosportal.io. So let me load that up. Now there is only one EOS mainnet listed here, for me anyway, and it has 141 block producers listed in it. So it's safe to say that that is the mainnet. So just click on the select button, then give it a second to load up and it'll pull the information out of the EOS network. Then click on this Use Chain button. Scatter will then pop up asking me if I want to add the EOS portal to my Scatter, and I will click Accept. And that pop-up is how Scatter protects us, right? If you ever see a pop-up like that and it appears at random, then you can tell Scatter to deny the action until you work out what exactly the transaction is for. So now let's double check that that's actually worked by going up to Scatter in the top right of our Google Chrome. Let's go to Settings, which is this gear icon, and then we'll click on Networks. Now I have 3 networks listed. 2 of them actually are built into Scatter by default, and then the third one is the one I just added, so that worked. Just make a note of the name of this network we just added because we're going to refer to it in just a second. I say make a note of it because yours might differ to mine. The next step then is to import our EOS account, which is where our tokens live. To get back to the main Scatter menu, I'm just going to click the little back arrow at the top of Scatter until I get back to the main page here. This time I'm going to click on Identities, And then I'm going to click on the new button at the top to create a new identity. In this first drop-down box here, make sure that the network you've got selected is the one we just entered. This is why I said to make a note of it. Then in the second drop-down, select the nickname that we gave to our private key earlier on. So I called mine ICO key, didn't I? That was the nickname, and here it is in the drop-down. So I'll just click on that. Then click on the import button and just be patient for a few seconds until Scatter goes to the EOS network and finds our account. Now it's asking me to select it. So select the account, which is the active account, and then click on the Use Selected Account button. Now go up to the top of Scatter and click Save. Now Scatter should give this identity some kind of random name, like in my case it's random rat some other number or other. So just leave it as that. Once we've got that, the next step is to authorize the EOS voting portal by pairing it with Scatter. And this is simply a case of clicking away from Scatter, so we're back on the EOS portal here, and you see the list of block producers down below, and then you see that the button that was called Use Chain has now changed into a button that says Pair Scatter. So just click on that. Scatter then shows me another pop-up asking if it's okay to carry out this action, and I was expecting this pop-up since I just initiated the action, so all I have to do is click on the identity I want to use, and then I click Accept. We only have one identity, so that's fine. Now that Pair Scatter button is gone because I've already used it. And would you believe it, we are now ready to cast our votes. After all that setting up, the voting process is now very, very simple. As you scroll down the list of block producers, you'll see that there's a counter that shows up showing you how many block producers you've voted for and how many countries they're in. Now this feature doesn't really work properly as yet because it relies on the block producers publishing their location, which many of them have not done. You'll see in the table of block producers here, there's the third column, which is where their location should show up, but some of them are blank. So that's nothing really the EOS portal can do about it unless the block producers actually publish that information. In any case, when you click on the vote button on the right that relates to your favorite block producers, if you click it, it doesn't actually cast your vote immediately, right? You put all of the votes in your shopping cart, and then when you're done, you scroll all the way back up to the top of the page and you click on this button that says vote for selected block producers. And at the minute, because I was just trying it out, it says I've got 2 out of 30 selected. So because I'm demonstrating this to you, I'm going to go ahead and click on the button. And no surprise, Scatter's got our back as always. It pops up with a confirmation window to make sure that we authorize this transaction. I would suggest you just give it a quick visual inspection to make sure that the transaction makes sense to you. The visual inspection isn't exactly foolproof since it does kind of rely on the developers giving their smart contracts descriptive names. In this case, we are using the EOS.io system contract and the vote producer action, which pretty well describe at a glance what exactly it is they're doing. And here on the right, you see that I'm voting for Liberty Block and Blocksmith. Scatter's also listing the identity I'm using, which we created earlier on, as well as my EOS account name. I'm happy with all this, so I will go ahead and click on the Accept button, and then my votes will be cast. In my case here, it's showing that voting failed because I took too long to accept the transaction, so it timed out. So don't dilly-dally, click on the vote button, give it the visual inspection real quick, and then click Accept. And then you should get a green voting successful confirmation. Now whenever you come back to the EOS portal, you'll see that the vote buttons have turned blue next to the block producers that you're currently voting for. If you ever want to remove your vote, then just click on the blue button and it'll remove it. Then scroll up to the top again and click on the vote for selected producers in order to update your votes. And then again, Scatter pops up to verify the transaction and I publish it by clicking Accept. So that has now removed one of my votes from one of those block producers. So there you have it. That is my process on how to vote for block producers. The next logical question is, how do you know who to vote for? Well, I've got another resource for you which I will link in the show notes for this video, which gives you all the information about all the various block producers. So you can go shopping for block producers, find block producers that match your values and your beliefs, that you believe are ethical and that will protect the EOS network and provide the most value to everybody. I'm going to go ahead and do the same. So I intend to publish another video letting you know the 30 block producers that I have chosen, along with a reason why I've voted for each one of them. So if you want to be lazy and let me do the research for you, wait for that video, or go ahead and do your own research. But until next time, guys, it's me, Chris Coney, saying bye for now.